Hello everyone. In today's episode, we will build a second clothing factory line, separate the industrial area's distribution network from the original one, and finally build the high voltage lines. And the best news of all, we will at last start producing gravel domestically, and eliminate the first building material from our list of imported goods. Apart from those, we will also build our first prefab apartment blocks, and we will even start construction on the food factory at the farms, in preparation for the first harvest next year. So, with the intro out of the way, let's get started. There are a couple things I tend to write down as I prepare for these episodes that I want to do as soon as I start recording. The first is to assign the farming distribution office to our fuel relocation services. I will also take one more look at the roads around our fields, and fix them if they have some grass sticking through. Since the last episode, I discovered an easier way of doing this that don't require rebuilding them completely: these ground texture tools. They leave packed dirt behind, even after they are removed, so I wish I knew about it before I messed up the electrical connections to the farm. Speaking of which, let's fix this abomination. I will have to rebuild the power poles, but these are quite cheap and we only need a short segment, so I can deal with the expenses. And just to be ready for our first year where we actually start farming, let's make it a test year and see how many of these fields get used with a single pair of tractors and harvesters. After that, we can more easily judge how many we need of each vehicle. Of course, we will need a truck in the distribution office to actually move the crops. To ensure that all of the high voltage lines will be buildable, let's place them down in a way that will make their construction faster. In my experience, they will start building from where you started the connection. So to make it faster, we can start building from the border outpost, because the transformer is closer to our construction offices than the industrial side. And since we have no road access to the border power connection, we will have to start building the wires from the industrial power switch. And since we are here, let's connect the industrial transformer up to the network too. Next up, another distribution house for the industrial sector. With this, we can have an oil truck delivering fuel locally, so the border one doesn't have to come all the way down here. Once we start using the stone quarries, they will need fuel too, so it's best to deal with it separately. Plus I want to start moving excess fabric to the nearby customs house, so we can free up one more truck at the original border. Next up, let's make a second clothing factory line. We have the room, the manpower, plus it will boost our exports substantially, so there are no downsides. And to make our export trucks' life easier, let's combine the output of the two separate factories into this warehouse. No need to bother with dirt roads this time around. We can go straight for the gravel connections. Also, the construction office that actually have the necessary machinery to build the power connection for the quarries is just barely out of range. I have to assign it manually, so it can deal with it. This next thing is something I've been meaning to build for a couple episodes now. I'll just get to it, and you'll see. First, we elevate the ground around this area a bit. I go all the way to the road and make the slope as steep as possible. Only footpaths will need to climb it, and they are a bit more forgiving than roads. That should do it for now. Next, a little footpath so citizens can move around. And the main attraction. Our first prefab apartment block. This is just the first, more will come. But in this episode only 2 will be built. The elevated terrain is just a little extra, and the fact that it's a prefab panel building isn't what I've been looking forward to. You'll see what I mean once this first one is built. If you have a problem with making 90-degree connections, you can delete the uncooperative segment and rebuild it in a way that will ensure there is a node at the correct position. Of course, since I really like the way that footpath roundabout thing turned out, we can replicate it here to some extent. This looks like the 45 degrees angle I wanted anyways, so I'm glad I don't have to mess around with it more. Having a road connection is not strictly necessary. I might get rid of it later, but for now, I'll leave it be. Of course, no town extension is complete without adding some greenery to liven up the place. And the high voltage power lines are already under construction. Let's follow the crane building it. One side done. Nice. I will raise the amount of workers who can just walk into the site and start working, so we don't have to wait for the bus from the construction office to come around. I'll also attempt to make this piece of road a bit more interesting. The excavator is still occupied, however, so I'll come back later to finish it. I will raise the loan amount to 500,000. And this is the reason why I think I will make the next episode fully fast forwarding. It will most likely be just me fine tuning small things here and there, but I will avoid any construction and other expenditures if I can. I will simply allow my economy to recover a bit. Maybe a full year will do the trick. I will end this one at the start of winter, so episode 8 will likely be the entirety of 1963 compressed into a single time-lapse. Not sure yet, but it looks very likely at this point. Anyways, the quarries are ready for work. Once the distribution house is built, I will supply them with fuel, and they will be fully operational. And here comes the crane to finish building the high voltage line. So nice to see buildings going up so quickly. That second construction office really sped things up for us. I gave up waiting for the excavator. I'll just deal with it using the old leveling tool. There. That's more interesting to look at. When trying to decide which dumper to use for the quarries, I decided to go for the smaller, but faster one. It can carry about half as much as the ones we've been using up to this point, but it is also twice as fast, so the cheaper price kind of tipped the scale in its favor. Of course we will need more than one per quarry, but to start out, these will do. We will set it to load fully at the quarry, and unload fully at the gravel crusher. The first one is a bit unnecessary. Once the excavators have their own fuel, it's going to be 24/7 operation, so any pickup will be 100% regardless. But for drop-off, we need that 100%, so the trucks queuing in front of gravel processing can act as a bit of a buffer. Here I realized that this section of power poles have no way of getting built, because they have no immediate access to the roads. To fix this, I'll simply have to trim it back all the way to the substation, and start construction from there. I'm really not happy with the way the farm field gets its fences cut off. I'll move the power poles to the other side of the road. Could be worse. Now it is successfully assigned for building. Should be done relatively quickly. Overall, this cost us about 600 rubles. I think we'll survive. And the apartment building is complete. Building on an elevated plateau looks kind of nice. And now for the thing I wanted to do. The collision boxes on these buildings allow them to be placed so close to each other that they are practically touching. So we can build rows of these, and while technically they are separate buildings, they will look like a single connected row of panel houses. And let's try to make the footpaths look nice and organized, like they were carefully planned beforehand. Yeah, this will do just fine. I'm still not sure I will keep these roads in the long term. This looks like a perfect place for some greenery, maybe a statue or two. We could also use it for residential parking once we start producing vehicles of our own. And the industrial distribution is finished. First of all, we will need to have a local fuel supply, so we don't rely on the original office, which is a bit too far away for my liking. Eventually I will want to move to other vehicles, particularly these W50 IFA trucks, but since we are only using gravel roads at the moment, we cannot take full advantage of their speed just yet. Yeah, don't worry. I will notice that it is set to unload fuel at the customs house. We'll fix it soon. Anyways, since we want to ease the demand on the original fuel distribution, let's unassign the industrial buildings from its list. And since I want to deal with excess fabrics locally, let's buy 2 more covered hull trucks for that purpose. I wonder why fuel isn't being delivered to the quarries. The fabric pickups seem to be working fine. Oh right. We need to buy fuel, not sell it. My bad. And the fuel truck is away. With the warehouse and its factory connections complete, we can reassign the clothing export line to start picking up its cargo from there, instead of straight from the factory. The farms still look a bit bare to me. Let's add a couple more clumps of trees. To ensure that all of the new apartments buildings can reach all of the services, we need to place a couple extra footpaths. A gravel footpath allows faster walking than a gravel road. So by bridging this road segment with a footpath, we can allow citizens to walk a bit farther than before. At last, time to start up our gravel industry. Now, this was a small mistake. I assumed the excavator will come with enough fuel to fill up the truck completely. Unfortunately, it immediately went to refuel, so I'll just set the trucks to not wait for a full load at the quarries. This will ensure that the fuel deliveries can quickly drop their cargo off. Plus, as I said before, it's unnecessary to begin with. Once the excavators have power and fuel, they will work non-stop and any pickup made will be 100% anyways. We'll just have to wait a little bit for this first excavator to make its way to the gas station and back. But this time, the fuel truck could unload without having to wait around, and we can buy the second digger without it leaving to refuel immediately. And the last quarry have fuel, so let's buy the last digger. There we go. Trucks pick up raw stone at the quarries, drop it off at the gravel processing plant, and then it will be stored in the aggregate storage. Yeah, this guy is running empty because its excavator was away on an adventure. There we go. This truck is trying to unload everything, so the remaining stone in its hopper is acting as a resource buffer for the gravel plant. I'll just wait around here a bit, so I can tell this dumper to turn around when the digger is close to its home. There. The 3 quarries are fully operational. At this point, I will allow workers to choose whatever workplace they wish to work at, once they get off the bus. Let the gravel flow freely. And let's not forget to set up a second import line for the new fabric factory. Yeah. We need another loan extension. I'm more and more convinced that we need a year of rest, so our finances can recover. This is going to be the same as the other line. 5 trucks picking up 90% crops and 10% chemicals at the border, and dropping them off at the factory. Pretty straightforward at this point. I could feasibly do this using a distribution office, but then I would need to build a bigger one. I'll just stick to using dedicated routes for this one. And to make our lives easier, let's rename these lines so I can more easily tell which one does what. It seems the second clothing factory started working. Very nice. Once the amount of workers adapt to the new status quo, we'll have a much faster rate of production. And the second prefab house is complete too. When mousing over them, it's obvious that they are separate buildings, but from afar, they look like a single entity. To make the entrances look a bit nicer, I'll just place a bit of gravel around them, using the ground texture option. They will blend together nicer once I upgrade the footpaths. Yeah, that shadow is a bit of a giveaway, but it's rarely visible. By adding that extra bit of walkway next to the road, now even the second building can reach everything important, including the university. In order to upgrade the rest, we will need to add a couple of side connections that will allow citizens to reach the town center in the meantime. They are very much temporary, and will be deleted once the permanent ones are covered in gravel. The fact that I never find the export truck here when I look, is very promising. It means it spends more time on the road, rather than waiting to be filled. Let's see just how much cargo is produced while it makes a single round trip. The footpaths seem to be progressing nicely. Very nice. It almost got filled up completely when it arrived back at the warehouse. Once the factories start working at peak efficiency, we might need to add another truck to this line to keep up. Let's also add the second production line to the distribution office, so the trucks can pick up the overproduced fabric and sell it. With gravel being produced domestically, we can finally eliminate the first construction material from our list of imports. We simply have to disallow loading at the border, and instead designate the aggregate storage as the new pickup location. Dumpers will have a longer way to go, but we will save some money in the long term. Plus it's a temporary solution anyway, eventually we will have a proper distribution network. And since our construction offices are sitting idle, it is time to bite the bullet and start building the food factory. This might be the last big project for a year at least. It seems we already delivered the materials required for the foundation in an earlier episode. Only buses and an excavator is moving to the site. And to make our lives easier come spring, we might as well start upgrading the main road going through the farming area. We will need to keep a close eye on the heating plant to make sure it doesn't run out of coal, but I think we can afford to do this. Construction vehicles can go on the side roads, so no need to delay upgrading this section because of them. And with the foundations done, we have a lot of construction materials incoming. We just might manage to bake our first bread in the next episode. The town's substation is getting dangerously close to its limit. We should start thinking about building a new one soon. I was having flashbacks to the Great Coal Scare of 1961. I will get over it soon, and unpause these roads. We definitely made an impact on the frequency of exports. Instead of a bunch of spikes, we have a more continuous graph at the end. I'm really happy about this. And we finally started to have unemployment due to the lack of workplaces instead of childcare. Having that second prefab building may have been a bit of an overkill. Having to deliver this amount of materials over dirt roads. Just like the good old days. This small piece of dirt road really started to bother me, so I just bridged it over with a service connection and set it to be upgraded. I decided to take my chances and upgrade all those roads going through the farm area. But to make me sleep better, I put a pin into the heating plant's info window so I can keep an eye on it. Having an ultra-wide monitor really comes in handy at times. The heat exchangers are working at 64% individually. Should be just fine. Oh great. Snow. That will really slow us down. I think the second best snowplow is released in 1966. Still a bit away until cleaning roads becomes less of a hassle. We can remove these walkway connections now. The main parts have been upgraded. Anyways, as usual, I will end this episode not long after the first snow falls. I am now determined to make the next episode all about fast forwarding through 1963. The amount of loans we took out is starting to make me uncomfortable, so in order to stop it climbing any higher, I'll dedicate the whole of next year to repaying them. I will most likely only make small adjustments whenever I see something I can improve upon, and I will avoid big construction projects. I believe we are at a stable point where we can afford resting for a year. I will try my best to shoot some montage footage throughout the year, but we don't really have that many interesting looking places yet. I guess we'll see. I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.